Continuing my discussion of the series that I started last Wednesday, Not All Factual, but All True, I want to discuss the context of the story of the first sin of Adam and Eve. The story tells us that God had said to Adam and Eve that they could do whatever they wanted in the garden, except eat of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So, of course, it doesn't take very long for them to violate that one simple command. They are tempted by the serpent. They eat of the fruit and their minds are opened. But their minds are not open to the knowledge of good and evil. Rather, their minds are open to their shame at being naked. And so what do? They hide from God, or they try to hide from God. God eventually finds them and asks them, "What have you done?" And as so often happens when someone does something that they're not supposed to, they blame somebody else. So Adam blames Eve, and Eve blames the serpent. And so God punishes them. He says that Adam will have to work hard in order to produce food for him and for his family, and that Eve will suffer pain in childbirth, and that both of them will suffer the consequence of death because of their sin. So, what does this story tell us? We know that this story is not factually true, it's not literally true. So, what are the meanings that the author who wrote this story so much later is trying to communicate? I think the author is trying to tell us that when we violate the will of God, we fall out of right relationship with God. That when we sin, our sin separates us from God. That we try to run away from God, and that we try to point the finger at somebody else when we do something wrong. So there are lessons here to be learned from the sin of Adam and Eve, which is a story that is told to talk about the origin of sin. Where did sin come from? We know now that sin comes from the free choice of people to violate the will of God, and as a consequence to be alienated, to have distance created between ourselves and God.